Biden's brother then becomes a lobbyist in the 80s, representing tobacco attorneys, while Joe Biden is a key senator on this giant tobacco settlement and legislation.
Wow.
Hunter Biden graduates in 1996, immediately goes to work for where? MBNA. People who are a little bit too young might not remember, they were the credit card company in this country. They've since been absorbed by Bank of America.
Right.
But at the time, they were pushing for bankruptcy reform so that people couldn't discharge medical debts, couldn't discharge credit card debts, private student loans. And they make him a senior vice president. So Hunter Biden then serves till 2001, goes and becomes a lobbyist, federal lobbyist, while his dad is a senator.
A very powerful senator.
He's getting earmarks. His firm is representing University of Delaware, paying the firm millions of dollars. University of Delaware is getting tens of millions of dollars in earmarks. And that whole time, he's still getting paid $100,000 a year as a consultant for MBNA.
Wow.
Who knows what he's doing? Biden is leading the push on bankruptcy reform. He finally gets bankruptcy reform enacted in 2005, and then Hunter Biden's consultancy ends in 2005. And actually, after 2005 is when you see the student loan crisis really take off.
Right.
And
it was this.
It takes off because the legislation that Biden was pushing through, apparently, also, incentivized by his kid working in that particular industry, made it impossible for people to discharge their bankruptcies. So you have trillions of dollars of student loan debt based upon Joe Biden. And Joe Biden apparently is going to be the one to solve that issue. Not. There's more. I wanted to show a prior instances of corruption so you could realize that this is Biden Inc. This is normal. This is business as usual for the Biden family trading off of Joe Biden's name. Think about it for yourself for the moment. Is it rational for a crackhead to get $50,000 and $80,000 a month working at a gas and energy company where that person had no knowledge of gas and oil, and they had no knowledge of that particular country to which they were working in, talking about the Ukraine? I'm making the point that is it rational to trade off your dad's name if you can get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, doing so? And if it is rational to do that, again, this assuming you don't get caught, and Biden is your dad, so oftentimes you probably won't. And as evidence to that, look at what's taking place right now and the way that the media is basically blocking and tackle for one Joe Biden in order to prevent Trump from getting back in the office with stories like this getting any level of traction. I'm making the point that there could be a certain confidence that media is not going to cover that because you're part of the people that's part of the in crowd. And in being part of that in crowd, especially now in this election season in 2020, there is a very clear concerted effort by media to stop one guy and get the other guy over the finish line. And whether you think that's right, wrong, good, bad, anywhere in between, I just want to point out that the stories that are coming out about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden or the laptops and everything else, that it does fit within a context. And that context didn't just start in this election cycle. Let's hear one more from Ryan.
So then Joe Biden runs for president, right? 2000. He's
2008.
He's gearing up to run for president, and so he tells his son, according to some reporting at the time, "Look, can you do something other than be a federal lobbyist? Like that doesn't really look that great for me." And according to a business partner that ended up filing a complaint after things went sour with him and Hunter and James, Joe Biden called him and said, "Can you help my son, get into like some investing, some private equity, something that's not federal lobbying?" And so Hunter and James and this guy take over this firm called Paradigm Global Advisors. And in one of the first meetings, according to the Politico magazine, James Biden and Hunter Biden and Bo Biden are all there, and they tell the officials there, "Hey, look, don't worry about clients. We have people lined up who want to invest in Joe Biden, and they're gonna give us their money." Now, Hunter and James Biden say that that's not true, but the Politico magazine had a ton of different sources saying that this is exactly what the guy said.
This is the Biden Inc. story.
This is Biden. So this is James.
The moment that you have a political person or a person of great political stature, that person has coattails, and his kids had no issue with hanging on his coattails. The question I'm asking you, is it rational? Is it likely? Is it possible? I'm making a point to you that, yes, it is likely that his family would do this, especially if they considered it normal process going all the way back since Joe Biden was in politics, like 47 years ago. I mean, the track record is there if you want to watch or look at it, but the mainstream media is doing everything that they can not to. The reason why I'm bringing this up, because the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop, supposedly, quote unquote, was uncovered by a repairman. And the information that's on that laptop is being ignored, is being suppressed, is being censored. One of the websites that came out with a recent audio tape, you had to click it multiple times for the website to even load properly. And so there does seem to be this kind of concerted effort to not look at certain information, to not deal with certain data. And instead, fingers and ears, la, 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 la. Look, even if everything in that laptop ends up being true, and there's some nasty stuff in that laptop, especially along this notion of child pornography, but you still may have people, just like with the Me Too movement, who said, yeah, me who? Me who? Yeah. The moment that Joe Biden got in and the Tara Reade accusation came out, well, I suspect that you would also have a lot of people who would do me who with the stuff that's in that laptop. I want to go over some of the new data that's in the laptop, including audio tape that was leaked of Hunter Biden himself saying very strange things. And I'm pretty sure that's going to end up being a certain investigation in and of itself. But apparently the FBI has this information. The Congress and the committees are looking into it. Joe Biden said Ron Johnson should be ashamed of himself. Well, maybe not so much. Maybe you should be ashamed of yourself. And for people to add the adjective soft, doesn't change the fact that it is indeed corruption. And I would go so far as to say it's not soft. Soft is a moniker that people are adding on to because they don't want to deal with the fact that their candidate is also massively corrupt. In this very specific instance, I want to let you listen to the new audio tape that's been released. And I am also going to let you listen to some corroborating evidence by a gentleman, Bobulinski, that apparently worked with Hunter and was aware of communications between Hunter and Biden that goes beyond this notion of I've never talked to my son about business. Well, Bobulinski will say otherwise, especially on this issue of China. One last point. Whether it's Democrats that are pointing the finger at the Russians, saying that ubiquitous Russian is the cause of all of America's ills and failures, or whether it's Trump trying to wrap Joe Biden in with China, this is still the situation where both countries are pointing to the other side, trying to accuse something else of undermining and destroying America in and of itself. It's never America undermining and trying to destroy other countries. Well, just understand, this is political posturing by both parties. And, you know, it's not a Biden loves China. It's more so Biden is corrupt in the same way that you can make a case that Trump is corrupt. But you must understand, this is not Biden's in a tank for China or Trump is in a tank for Russia. That stuff is just political casting by both parties that are trying to hide their own failings. Welcome to the Soapbox.
I'm making this statement to set the record straight about the involvement of the Biden family, Vice President Biden, his brother Jim Biden, and his son Hunter Biden in dealings with the Chinese. I have heard Joe Biden say that he's never discussed business with Hunter. That is false. I have firsthand knowledge about this because I directly dealt with the Biden family, including Joe Biden. I have also heard that Vice President Biden said on Tuesday that Senator Ron Johnson, the chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, should be ashamed for suggesting that Biden family sought to profit from their name. Well, here are the facts I know, and everything I'm saying is corroborated by emails, WhatsApp chats, agreements, documents, and other evidence. And the American people can judge for themselves. I brought, I guess, for record, 3 phones that spanned the years 2015 through 2018. These phones have never been held by anybody else besides myself. I was told this past Sunday by somebody who was also involved in this matter that if I went public this information, it would bury all of us, man. The Bidens included. I have no wish to bury anyone. I've never been political. The few contributions I have made have been to Democrats. But what I am is a patriot and a veteran. To protect my family name and my business reputation, I need to ensure that the true facts are out there. In late 2015, I was approached by James Gilliar, whom I had known for many years, about joining him in a deal which he said would involve the Chinese state-owned enterprise CEFC China Energy and what he called one of the most prominent families in the United States. I was informed first by Gilliar and then by Hunter Biden and by Rob Walker, who was working with the Bidens, that the Bidens wanted to form a new entity with CFC, which was to invest in infrastructure, real estate, and technology in the U.S. and around the world. And the entity would initially be capitalized with $10 million and then grow to billions of dollars of investment capital. After months of discussion, I agreed at Gilliar and Hunter Biden's request to become CEO of the entity to be called Sinohawk. Sino representing the Chinese side, Hawk representing Hunter Biden's brother Bo's favorite animal. And between February and May 2017, we exchanged numerous emails, documents, and WhatsApp messages concerning Sinohawk and its potential business. On May.
Now, this deal apparently falls apart. And what is being said is that there was another deal, kind of an end around, where $5 million was dropped off to apparently Hunter. Now, this gentleman is basically saying, look, I don't have a dog in this hunt. At the end of the day, the people I've donated to were Democrats, and I have worked with these guys. I have heard these guys have conversations about this stuff myself with my own ears. Here's my cell phones. Here's all my data. Here's my information. This is what I'm saying is true. Now, again, this needs to be evaluated, but this guy only has, 8,000 views on this video. Now, yes, this video was put out there for political reasons, but again, whether it's political or not, the question becomes, is it true? And if you're going to make that vote for Biden, you got to make that vote knowing what's true in that situation, meaning you don't get to hide with this nonsense of, well, I mean, we can just keep this idea of the documents and whatnot that are in that laptop, or the implications of the things that are in that laptop. We don't know, so we can just keep that, in this kind of quasi-reality space. You don't know because you don't want to ask. And you don't want to delve into the questions about what this means from the standpoint of corruption and Joe Biden. And especially if there is any implications in regards to Biden winning this race. Meaning if in any way it would adversely affect Biden winning this race to have information released showing that he has been lying all this time and that he has been more corrupt than what we thought he was in regards to his involvements in business affairs while he's in positions of state, then that issue is mostly with you. Understand what I mean? The reality of it is the reality of it. If you don't want to find the reality of it, you can't say that you want to keep it a quasi space if you don't necessarily try to find out what's true. 2 + 2 is, I guess we'll never know. We would never know the answer to that. No, you would know the answer to it if you just ask the question. And right now, this stuff is being suppressed. And they are doing a full court press to stop information for Biden coming out. And look, whatever you want to think, the question becomes, is it legit? Is it real? Are the pictures of Hunter Biden doing crack real? Are the pictures of him, in these pornographies real? Are the text messages that seem to get across something pretty nasty with other family? Is it? My question is, what's real? And it's possible that that laptop was put together with some elements that are real and some elements that may not be, with the idea that if you check a few or you check most, then you will come away with the assumption that all of it is legit, when you may just have the bulk of it is legit, with some of the wilder claims less so. It's unknown, but that's just it. part and parcel to it being unknown is because media is doing everything that they can to not bring this up. Now, Steve Bannon has made the point that says, look, they're not going to be able to help it. There's going to be stuff coming out from all angles as the election day gets closer and closer, and as the contents of that laptop gets dumped out before the election. And, you know, I suppose within the next few days, we'll get a determination on whether or not Bannon is right in regards to the information from that laptop being substantial enough to impact the race. This is a Hunter Biden tape. And it's weird. I don't entirely get who he's talking to. But within it, he sounds just like Joe Biden, meaning the cadence and even his voice sounds similar to Joe Biden. So I suspect strongly that it is Hunter. But beyond the point about the Joe Biden stuff, he's talking about business deals and he's talking about friends of his who just got convicted. Now, when he's talking about these guys and he's talking about the association with China and the interactions with China from a business standpoint while Joe Biden is in office, well, Hunter is corroborating this with what he is saying here, that this guy was an associate of his. And I'm going to show you what just happened to that associate of Hunter Biden from this clip.
I get calls from my father to tell me that the New York Times is calling, but my old partner Eric, who literally has done me harm for I don't know how long, is the one taking the calls because my father will not stop sending the calls to Eric. I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of literally, Dr. Patrick Ho, the fucking spy chief of China, who started the company that my partner, who was worth $323 billion, founded, and is now missing. The richest man in the world is missing, who was my partner. He was missing since I last saw him in his $58 million apartment and signed a $4 billion deal to build the fucking largest fucking LNG port in the world. And I am receiving calls from the Southern District of New York, from the U.S. Attorney himself. My best friend in business, Devin, has named me as a witness without telling me in a criminal case, and my father without telling me.
Now, he said Joe Biden and himself have been implicated or dragged into a criminal case, and his friend didn't tell him anything about it. There's a lot to unpack in this to try to figure out what he's talking about. I'm going to read part of this again. I get calls from my father to tell me that the New York Times is calling, but my old partner, Eric, who literally has done me harm for I don't know how long, is the one taking the calls because my father would not stop sending the calls to Eric. Okay, my dad, Joe Biden, is sending calls, coming in asking about Hunter Biden's relationships to somebody who he says is horrible towards him and has done him all sorts of harm. Now, the catch becomes, why is your dad sending calls to Eric? Now, it's possible that the dad is sending calls to Eric because he doesn't want Hunter Biden to play any role in this, and he figures, you've done enough. Sit your ass out there. That's one possibility, but again, we don't know who he's talking to. So put a pin in that one for the moment. I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of Patrick Ho, the fucking spy chief of China who started the company that my partner, who is worth $323 billion, founded and is now missing. The richest man in the world who was my partner is now missing. Now, to be fair, he might have been the richest man at the time, but I think right now, the person he's talking about, Jiannaman, I believe. I think he's second richest. This is the other gentleman that he was talking about. Right here. Patrick Ho. Patrick Ho has just been convicted of basically a criminal scheme to bribe Africa. I'll just read it. The disgraced former Hong Kong politician was sentenced to 3 years in prison by a U.S. federal court in New York for his role in a multi-million-dollar scheme to bribe African leaders through contacts made at the United Nations. Now, this guy used to be a politician in Hong Kong, Home Affairs, I believe. But basically, when he started working at the UN, he was using his connections at the UN in order to create basically business deals through bribery. So the sentencing wraps up the case that began with his arrest in February by agents at JFK Airport on November 2017, and saw Ho convicted on several counts of violating the Federal or the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and money laundering in December 2018. In sentencing, Judge Loretta A. Prescott called corruption, quote, an insidious plague, unquote. She noted that it is found, quote, found in all countries, but big and rich, or big and small, rich and poor, but it's in the developing world that the effects are most destructive. Now, Ho was part of the CEFC China Energy, which was founded by Yi Jianming. Now, Yi Jianming is the person that he's saying was his business partner and the richest man in the world, etc. In 2017, he was ranked number 2 on Fortune's list, so he may be number 1 right now. It's also interesting to say that he's been implicated. Him and Joe Biden has been implicated in a criminal case, and his friend Devon never told him anything about it. What Patrick Ho was doing was offering bribes in order to get business advantage for the CEFC China Energy. Ho was found to have offered $2 million cash bribe in a gift box to President of Chad, Idris Deby, after arranging a meeting with him in the Sahara Desert to secure oil rights for the Chinese conglomerate. You heard that right. Meeting in the middle of the Sahara. Now, this is somebody that Biden, in this audio tape, he's talking about working with both. Ho, Patrick Ho, the one that just got convicted, and Jianming, who he's saying at that point went missing. Let's read that part one more time. He says, I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of Patrick Ho, the fucking spy chief of China who started the company that my partner, who is worth $323 billion, founded and is now missing. The richest man in the world is missing, who was my partner. He was missing since I last saw him in his $58 million apartment inside a $4 billion deal to build the fucking largest fucking LNG port in the world. And I'm receiving calls from the Southern District Court of New York and the United States Attorney himself. My best friend in business, Devon, named us as a witness, his dad and him. That's so weird and interesting. So the question becomes, what does this stuff mean? And I would imagine this is going to probably raise more questions than less. So I'll end this here. I didn't want this video to go long, but I did want to give an explanation of what was taking place. And if I am not mistaken, Patrick Ho was Home Secretary when he was working in Hong Kong. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. It was something dealing with the Home Secretary. All right, but I'll leave this here. I'm going to say like, share, and subscribe. Yes, trying to find a specific thing. Basically, the Chinese energy giant had so tightly aligned itself with President Xi Jinping Belt and Road policy that it was hard to distinguish between Patrick Ho and apparently Xi Jinping, meaning from the standpoint of the policy. But I'm going to leave this here. Like, share, and of course, subscribe.